Come what may, bring it on. I'm gonna love it.
Welcome to LDS Unmarried Life, a podcast for single members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and no affiliation with the church. This podcast is for singles who find themselves in that state either because they're divorced, widowed, or not yet married. And before we start today's episode, which will be on long-distance relationships, I just wanted to say a few words about the podcast. I did not set out to make a podcast about singles. My original idea was to podcast on the Constitution and history and politics and things like that, sort of an educational podcast. And but through a lot of meditation and prayer, this is where I was kind of directed to go. And so I feel like it's not really my podcast anymore. I feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I feel like there must be a need out there that Heavenly Father wants me to address, where singles sometimes feel like they're not heard, or maybe they feel a little bit, not outcasty, but not at home entirely in a married church all the time. Yeah. So anyway, the reason I bring that up is that I'm really hoping that those who are listening to the podcast are getting something out of it. And I would love to hear from some of you, maybe comment on my website, AnnetteTalks.com, or email me at Annette@AnnetteTalks.com. Let me know that you're listening, or let me know what you think about it. Any ideas that you have, suggestions, anything really. I really want this to be a community podcast. That's kind of the goal and the aim. And so sometimes it feels one-sided when I'm recording because I don't have instant feedback from listeners. So if you could let me know anything really that you want to, that would be great. And I should also mention right now that I'm a little sick, so my voice is going to sound not so hot. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a crew here today, and we're going to talk about long-distance relationships. And it was funny because I had the idea to do that, and then I got an email from Miss Deanne, who is here today, who actually is in from Oregon, right?
Correct.
All right, well, we'll start with you when we do introductions. So Deanne, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
My name's Deanne. I'm from Oregon. I live in the Portland area. And I've been single now for about 4.5 years, 4 children, busy career, busy life. Just kind of been out there trying to find, that other piece that's missing.
All right. We're all looking for that, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next.
I'm Monty. I've been divorced officially for about 4 to 5 months now. And so, got to discuss it, I guess.
You don't have that divorce date fixed firmly in your mind. Some of us do. All right, and next?
I am Ryan. I have been divorced for 4 years now. It was a very brief marriage, but no children, and currently just serving as a church service missionary for the facilities group.
And taking care of a mom,
And
too.
taking care of my dear sweet old widowed mother.
So you have your hands full as well.
I have my hands full, but not full enough, I believe.
You're still looking for that other piece, too.
I am.
All right. Well, and you all know me. My name's Annette Bybee. This is my podcast in that I'm running it. I've been divorced for 3.5 years, have 3 girls, 10, 9, and almost 8. And that's kind of all you need to know.
Okay. I'm Emily. I've been divorced 4 years now, and I have 3 little ones between the ages of 7 and 11. That's the basics about me. When you talked about the motivation for doing the podcasts and kind of your history with that, it reminded me of when I was first going through that traumatic situation of this is really happening, this divorce is going to happen. I don't understand. And so I did a lot of soul searching and seeking, and podcasts and other things on YouTube were huge. I just grabbing at anything and everything, and I found a lot of information like what you're putting out there. So my motivation is to give back to people who are just sharing their life experiences and how they navigated through those things, those situations.
Well, good. I'm glad to know that there's help. You went out there and found help from places that I'm hoping to be one of those
Yeah,
places.
I hope so
That's my goal.
Can I add one thing here?
Yes.
I have had the opportunity to be in the same ward as Annette and Emily. And I saw these two wonderful women bond together, friendship and love and support, which I believe is so important for everybody who is going or has gone through the divorce process or even a bad breakup. But I see these two women whom I love very much, and the support that they've shown one another. You see it. You see their interaction online with Facebook and what have you. But when you see them in person, it is such a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm so not going to cry today. Like, I've been feeling all day long, like, no, I don't want to cry on this podcast.
I didn't know if I should reach out and hold your hand.
No. It's so funny because
They are holding each other's hands right now.
Emily and I met for the first time at the temple when we were doing a single session. And it was funny because I sat next to her and she just seemed like a nice lady. But then, like, the next month, for the same single session, I ended up sitting next to her, and I turned to her and I said, am I required to sit next to you every single time? And so then we ended up in the same ward, and now you're my ministering sister.
Yeah.
And so, and our kids are like the same age. So yeah, we're kind of in this boat together. We've been in this boat. I'm not going to look at you.
Okay.
You guys are rambling.
I do not want to cry. This is so dumb. All right. See, these podcasts, you never know where they're going to go. I mean, that's like half the fun of them, though. It's like I have an agenda, and then I get into it, and it's kind of like I'm teaching gospel doctrine. I'll get in there, and I have my lesson already, and then I'll get into it, and somebody will say something, and it'll take it into a totally different direction.
Let the Spirit lead you.
Yes.
It morphs based on the needs of the moment, right?
Which I love.
Yeah.
So, anyway, down to the topic. Long-distance relationships. So I'm going to start it out because I have a pretty strong opinion on them. And so I feel like holding up one of those signs that says, I don't believe in long-distance relationships, change my mind. Because at least in my position, I have minor children and their dad is local. And so I can't move. And so I won't move. I mean,
It's like 15 to life in Colorado.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
It's not a prison here. Colorado's a great place to be stuck in.
I agree.
It's awesome.
You got to be stuck somewhere. Colorado
Absolutely.
is the place to be.
I feel that way about Oregon myself.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'm in a similar situation as you. I still have, my youngest is 11. All my other ones, my boys are out of the house, and my daughter is a senior in high school, my oldest daughter. So I'm going to be down to one child at home, but still.
You have a child.
I have a child at home. And I always like to tell people I have a 60-mile leash. So that's the radius I need to stay within the Portland area. So I'm not opposed to long-distance relationships, but I always mention that right up front from the get-go because I don't want to lead anybody in a direction thinking that I could relocate.
Yes,
Right.
and if I can bring up that, I've seen online in our various Facebook groups, our pages, what have you, I've seen, it spelled out very clearly up front, from the sisters, from the brothers, whoever, hey, look, relocation is not an option for me. And that is something that, it could be very rough on them because they would like nothing better than to put some distance between that, that person who
Former
they were
spouse.
once married to, yes.
Yep.
Or, it's something that is very sensitive. So singles need to be aware of this. I'm saying singles, hopefully you're understanding singles, divorcees, widowers, widowing. It's something that we have to be aware of. It's something we need to be sensitive of. It's not that we're trying to be selfish. I am selfish when it comes to Colorado because I love it, but take that into consideration.
Are you saying you're open to relocate?
In certain, yeah, Yes.
Okay. So we now have Ryan on record. He's willing to relocate.
I
Those
will make a sacrifice. for
to
love.
leave Colorado. I would leave in a heartbeat if I could.
Well, there's a story behind that. Maybe we'll get into it later.
All right. No, other than the snow, I like Colorado, but the snow is really not.
So-
and
I
the
love the
cold.
I'm
snow.
going to keep
I
my
know
mouth
some-
shut on this one.
I
Yeah,
know
Ryan
some
and I go back
really
and forth.
nice guys up in Minnesota.
Oh dear, not in a million years. Oh my gosh, I barely handle the snow here. Oh, I would die. I would wither on the vine in Minnesota.
With the distance, long distance relationship, taking that into account as well. There are people in certain parts of the United States, other countries, wherever, where you have a stronger, more vibrant population of LDS singles as well. Colorado is one of those areas. Arizona, Utah, obviously,
Idaho,
Idaho,
California.
Oregon.
California.
Oregon, not as
No,
much.
not so
well,
much.
I mean,
Not in the
there's
Pacific Northwest. Okay.
not as much
Yeah.
as the other areas.
But
that
then I
we-
think,
yeah.
yeah, and I think about my wonderful friends I've made who live out in Pittsburgh, Maine, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, where there's
Much
very
less.
few options.
Yeah,
And long distance relationships may be the only option they have.
yeah. No, that was one of the things I wanted to touch on because we are blessed in that. I mean, Denver's not Utah, but it's not bad. I mean, we do have options here, right? I have a friend that I'm chatting with in Arkansas, and there's no one out there for him. I mean, maybe there might be a few. If you're listening and you live in Arkansas, I know a really great guy. If you're a lady that happens to live out there. But in that case, I don't know what you do,
Well,
because
it's funny you bring up Arkansas because I was in a long distance relationship with a wonderful, wonderful woman from Arkansas.
she's still out there and single.
She is, thankfully, she's married,
Oh,
has an adorable little girl, but so maybe we'll get into that later. But
bummer. I was going to try and do a match.
that was back in the, I know. Annette matchmaker.
Yeah. Well, he's a really great guy. If he was local, I would date him. But again, from where I'm coming from, there are a couple options that could happen. Like sometimes I think I don't even want to meet this guy, and he listens to the podcast. Hi, I'm not going to say your name. Keep you anonymous.
I'll say it.
But I always think if we were to meet, one of two things would happen. Either we would really like each other, and then we're in a pickle because neither one of us can move, or two, we don't like each other, and then I've lost a really great relationship. So right now,
Yes.
it's a sweet spot. We've never met. We're there for each other. There's no romantic talk. I mean, I flirt with them just because that's what I do. But there's no relationship talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just I teased him one time. I said it's like having a journal that talks back to me, only the journal has a life of its own. And I've always wanted that. I've wanted a pen pal for a really long time, someone that I could write to, who has no stake at all in my life, that would give me completely objective advice.
I would love that.
Yeah, it's
But
awesome.
at some
I love
point, though, doesn't that flip? Because you start creating a bond.
I don't know. I'll let you know.
It can.
That kind of
I
goes
mean,
back
that's
to
a good
females and
point.
females.
I think it
friends.
would. It's like you start talking to somebody, doesn't matter where they're at and stuff. At some point, they're gonna strike some chord in you
There will be,
that
yes.
you'll
yes.
start getting feelings and
Yes.
stuff. And it's like, I'd like to just get to know, even if
I
it's
started-
not romantic. It's just like I like to get to know them more.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Exactly.
Well, eventually it's good to meet, because
If you're interested.
if you're
in
interested
going
or if
further.
there is logistic potential. I get your point in if he can't move and you can't move, it might not be to your benefit to meet each other.
Yes. Thank you. I'm glad that you agree with
no,
that.
I totally agree with that. I think that if the logistics fall in line, then you would, should meet him.
Right.
But again, if the logistics aren't there, the logistics aren't there.
Right. I'm not going to Arkansas. There's nothing. I have nothing to
right.
do.
Hey.
No, I'm not saying there's
Okay.
anything wrong with Arkansas. I'm just saying
I
I
will.
have no business.
Hey.
I'm saying
Awesome.
I don't have family out
Right.
there or
But
anything that would take me out there for any other reason. But I mean, if he lived in Utah, that would be a different story. I'd be out there
No, it
for whatever
wouldn't.
reason. No, I'm just saying I would have a reason to go out there. I have family out there.
I see.
I have friends out there, but
But logistics change too.
They can.
So, I mean, if a child gets older or
His
job
kids are just as young as
relocation
mine,
or-
though.
Yeah.
He has 3 boys. We would be Brady Bunch.
Right. Oh, that would be fun.
What were you going to say?
I was going to address her concern or us trying to convince her. The thing that I've looked at, I've been open to long distance though too, is as Deanne pointed out, it's like you don't know when the logistics is going to change, but I always look at it on the side too as just like my faith in the church, and it's like if it's meant to happen or if it's something special, you're either going to make it happen or things will open up for you. It might not be 6 months, it might be a few years down the line, who knows and stuff. But if there's that special someone that you connect to and that you just have just that wonderful relationship with and stuff like that, I really think it's, I think it's something that really needs to be sought out because it's hard to find those people that you really have that connection to.
But how do you know you really have that connection?
Unless you're with them in real life.
If you're,
Well,
just talking online
Face-to-face time.
is
it's one thing, and
Yes.
texting is one thing, and
It's-
even on the phone is one thing.
Yeah.
But until
Yep.
you're interacting with that person in person, looking into their eyes, having a normal conversation, if you're able to, once you get past that awkward stage, oh, okay, we're finally together here. How you doing? And then
You have
it
to be
becomes
able to read-
romanticized.
You have to be able to read body language and
Yes.
nonverbal
Yes.
communication.
Yeah,
So you can do long distance to a point,
Right.
but then
Even
you
s-
have to meet.
yes,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
Skyping or doing your Apple Talk or whatever they use nowadays, your video conversation, it is
Marco
different.
Polo.
It's
Yeah.
well, and the thing is, I feel like almost the long distance relationship thing has become so romanticized. It's like, well, I can't find anyone local, but way over there across the country is that special someone. And since they're way over across the country, your mind fills in the blanks that you don't know because you're not with this person with things that not a conscious thing, subconsciously it fills in the blanks with things that maybe you want that you can apply to that person.
Absolutely.
It's like an
What
empty suit.
sacrifices are you willing to make?
Yes, well,
just to
and
make
this
that
is
happen?
so. My other problem is how can you even get to know someone well enough long distance to decide it's worth one of you moving, right? Because then that person, if they're not already moving for some other reason and they're moving to be with you, what are the sacrifices that they're making? And to me, the biggest sacrifice that I will never ever make is my kids. I won't take them from their dad, and I won't leave them.
Yeah.
And so, unless an angel came down and in person said to me, "This is what you need to do," I wouldn't do anything to take myself or their dad away from my girls. And so that's why I would never seek out a long distance relationship.
Yes.
So, but there's this quote that I wanted to read from Elder Oaks, who's now President Oaks, I guess, but from a 2007 Ensign talk. And it's a good talk. It's hard to read because it's on divorce. And so the first, 2/3 or 3/4 are basically on how to you shouldn't be getting divorced, And I love Elder Oaks. He's awesome. I met him one time in person, and I shook his hand. It was like shaking a live wire. I mean, he's amazing, and I love him because when he writes his conference talks, and they're printed in the Ensign, they look like judicial opinions. I'm an
Yes.
attorney. I'm used to reading those,
Yes, we
so I know what they look like. I'm like, oh, he's writing an opinion because they're always section 1, 2. Anyway, but in this talk, one of the last paragraphs, this is from the April 2007 conference, but one of the last paragraphs, he talks about avoiding divorce by avoiding a bad marriage. And so this to me applies to maybe not long distance relationships as much as internet relationships, which there's kind of a big overlap there. He says, in conclusion, I speak briefly to those contemplating marriage. The best way to avoid divorce from an unfaithful, abusive, or unsupportive spouse is to avoid marriage to such a person. If you wish to marry well, inquire well.
Here.
Associations through hanging out or exchanging information on the internet are not a sufficient basis for marriage. There should be dating, followed by careful and thoughtful and thorough courtship. There should be ample opportunities to experience the prospective spouse's behavior in a variety of circumstances. Fiancés should learn everything they can about the families with whom they will soon be joined in marriage. In all of this, we should realize that a good marriage does not require a perfect man or a perfect woman. It only requires a man and a woman committed to strive together toward perfection.
That right
That-
there.
I love that.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
I remember re-listening to that and thinking, yes, if only.
So obviously, I mean, the big takeaways are thorough courtship, ample opportunities, variety of circumstances,
All right,
learning
wait.
everything you can.
Variety of circumstances. What do you think that means?
Day-to-day living.
Okay.
Serving
It's-
together.
Which in a long distance relationship, that's hard to see.
Exactly.
And I've had, my first relationship after my divorce was a long distance relationship. And, when it came to the time of actually talking about relocation and him being willing to leave his 4 children and come and relocate to
dear.
Oregon, and his kids were young, and I thought, I'm like, I can't ask anybody to do that.
No way.
And so, the relationship was short-lived at that point. Number one, it was kind of a turnoff to me.
Yeah.
That he was willing to do that. And, and I'm thinking, I've seen people make it work. And like I said, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think there's an individual way. And I've seen people who live in different states who are married. And
Oh, really?
yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, granted, I think it's 3.5 hour commute between
Okay,
the two.
right.
So it's reasonable. But, his kids are in Washington, hers are in Oregon, and they see each other on their weekends, or they just go back and forth between the
Wow.
households. But they don't want to relocate children. And they want to have that relationship. It works for them. Other people have moved states, and that's when they get that day-to-day living, is you get an opportunity to go and see before you actually get married. Okay, I'm willing to relocate, change my job, change my life, and dive deeper into this relationship. And I think it's a step-by-step process if you're actually going to go down that pathway. I don't think you relocate the day you get married.
No, and some people do.
Yeah.
And the reason I feel so strongly is I've seen a few people leave their kids and go marry someone in another state,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I just don't.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you see in regular marriages when they separate and stuff, one has nothing to do with the kids though then too at the same thing. So I mean,
Or
I
a spouse who travels a lot may not see
Sure.
their
yeah, I mean,
family
I
very
think
often at all.
I think that's unfortunate when you have one of those spouses that don't want to be involved with their kids, and they might find somebody else and they marry somebody else with kids and stuff, and now that's their family, and they've put their old family behind them, and
I don't
It's-
understand that. I hear
Yeah,
it happening with males
exactly.
and females, but I
Yeah.
don't understand it.
I don't
just
either.
don't understand it.
There's a lot that we won't be able to comprehend and understand when it comes to the way that some former spouse treat
Yes.
or
Yep.
behave. But yet we still have an obligation. I'm saying we, speaking as parents, I'm not a parent, but we still have an obligation that even though we may not be close to the other person, we still respect that the kids have a father, they have their mother. It may not be who you want it to be, but that's who it is. And you respect the relationship in a sense that you don't talk down about it. You don't, unless there's a risk of abuse, harm, abuse being physical or verbal. You keep the kids close
To both parents.
to both parents.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
And you make it clear to those that you're dating or prospective dating that, hey, my kids have a mother, my kids have a father. You define the role. You define the role.
Yeah.
If hey, they already have a parent.
Yeah, Deanne, I liked what you said about you were turned off by that guy that was willing to leave his kids. I would
Yeah.
never marry a guy who was willing to leave his kids.
I know it was hard, to sit there and think, well, would I really ask somebody to do that, and how would that impact his children? And there were other things obviously with the relationship that made me not want to continue, but that was one of the factors that came into play. Is just really, you would be willing to do that?
Yeah.
The psychological effect on a child alone, having that happen, it's
because
not to say the day-to-day that they're missing out on with that parent. Like,
my dad picked a wife over me. You know, I mean, I'm a grown lady. I'm 50 years old, and I still feel the lack from my dad married a lady, and all of his energy is on her family and her kids. And I mean, I obviously don't need a dad every day, but it would be nice to hear from him every once in a while. I never do, because he's always all of his energy is focused on her kids, and I can't imagine what that would do to a young child as they grow up to know my parent chose another spouse over me.
Well, and like I said, the logistics change, and if a child is older and
becoming independent,
and when you have a long distance relationship, usually it takes more time than somebody that you're dating in your same town to develop that and really kind of sleuth out all the potential there. And so kids grow older, and then they go off to college, and here's this person that you've been investing in that hopefully you're going to spend eternity with. That's a much longer time than, say you have a 15-year-old at home, and in 3 years they're going to go off to college.
Yeah.
So,
But a lot can be done during those 3 years.
Well, I mean, you can be getting to know somebody
Exactly.
Over that period of time.
Exactly.
And so, like I said, it can take time to develop those long-distance relationships. I don't think it's anything that happens overnight. If it does, I think people might be a little short-sighted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard topic because I can see why it happens, because people are lonely. People are really wanting someone in their life, and you find someone and you want to make it happen.
Well, I think you think part of a relationship is better than no relationship.
Right.
Even if I have this person that lives in another state, at least I go get to see them.
You have a sense of fulfillment there, in a sense, hey, there's somebody
that's my person, and they're there.
Yeah.
I might not get to see them every day, and that's okay, because my other alternative is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think those are called friends. I don't think you
Exactly.
ever make them boyfriends or girlfriends or spouses. They're
Right.
called
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it all comes down, we want connection. And so I think sometimes people feel connected to someone long distance, and in a way it's easier, right, to maintain that because you don't have someone there all the time that you need to build a relationship with. They're there when you want them to be there. It was funny, one of the comments that I got on Facebook was a guy said that when he meets someone in person, he dates someone that's local, he tends to take it way too fast and blow it up. And so dating someone long distance actually forces him to slow it down, and it works out better. I thought that was an interesting
I could see that very
Yes.
well.
comment.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something.
Oh, and somebody else said, how do you define long distance relationship? And to me, it's you're stating that you're in a relationship with someone who is far enough away that it's inconvenient to see them on a regular basis. So, like, for instance, there's someone that was supposed to be here today who has decided to drive to Utah to see his relationship. I don't know what to call
Hey,
it.
that's all right,
Anyway, but it's, from here, that's an 8-hour drive. And so it's not like totally undoable, but it's definitely inconvenient. I always want to be able to call a guy and say, there's a bug on my ceiling. Can you come
And I
kill
want
my
to wring the
bug?
necks of some of these people who say, well, it's too inconvenient for me to drive from Salt Lake City to Provo or Salt Lake City to Logan.
Oh,
that's
God.
just how.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Along with that long distance, I was talking to several people throughout the week, and one gal that I was talking to said, well, I was in a relationship with a man who was just an hour away, but our schedules with our children and our jobs were so busy that it felt like a long distance relationship. It was too difficult to make that work out.
yeah, no, that's a
and
really good point.
They took it as long as they could, and then just had to admit to each other, we can't, it's not working.
For some people, an hour is a long way. And that's a few of the other comments I got was one person said, Littleton to Brighton often feels long distance. And someone else said she dated someone from Westminster and she was in Parker and it felt long distance. And so it really depends on your situation because, yeah, if you have a really busy life, like for me, if I had to go travel an hour or 2 hours every time I wanted to see a guy, it would be really hard because I have my girls 75% of the time. And so I don't have them, 1 or 2 nights a week, and I'm going to drive, I mean, it becomes like long distance. And so I probably would be lucky to see that person once a week. And once a week's not bad.
No.
But when you have an 8-hour drive
Yep.
or taking a flight, maybe once a month, twice a month, if you're lucky, and then it becomes kind of like
burden.
Vacation time, all happy fun. That's
Yeah.
another comment I got from someone I wanted to read. And she says, I hope you stress in the podcast that if you've never met the individual in person and have only communicated through electronic devices, that's not a real relationship. Well, I guess technically it could be called a relationship, but it's definitely a codependent make-believe one. And for those who only see each other once a month or so, please stress how unrealistic it is to have a meaningful relationship with someone you only see occasionally. That's not real life. Anyone can behave themselves for a weekend. To really get to know someone, you have to spend quantity time with them, not just quality time.
And I agree with that. That is the key. That's the one thing that I've learned through my long distance relationships and even friendships, that to truly get to know somebody, you have got to spend quality time together in person. Just saying, oh, we've been dating for a year, when really all it has been is maybe 1 or 2 visits to see each other. You really got to have, and that's where you get to things that come into play, such as, okay, in order to be able to have that quality time together, to really get to know that person, to get to know everything I can about them, I may have to move closer to them.
Sometimes though too, I mean, just going on a date with somebody local, somebody can behave and be on their best behavior for 2 hours as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if you're traveling to go meet somebody, you're investing like time. Yeah, it's maybe seems like a vacation time, but you're getting time. Like you're getting a big dose of it, either a whole day, 2 days, whatever it is you choose
Weeks.
to go and spend together. But it gives you an opportunity to see a little bit of their day-to-day.
Yeah.
And I know, like, when I dated this gentleman right after my divorce, I made a point, if he was coming to visit, I didn't change my schedule or alter my life. I'm like, okay, come, and we're gonna take my daughter here. We're gonna go pick up this and do this. I mean, it was just normal life.
Yes.
Because I think you need to see what my normal life is, and
No.
see if you can fit into my normal life, and you like it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I had a friend come and stay, and we never dated. He's just a friend, but it was fun having someone come along with me to take my kids places, go to, I think we went to a couple of trunk or treats, and I thought, yeah, if I was actually ever going to do a long distance relationship, well, first of all, he would have to be able to move. That's the only way it could happen. But yeah, I would do the same thing. Have them come in and have them just do day-to-day things with you, mundane things. And also, I want to see someone in like difficult circumstances, like when one of my kids is having a cow,
Right.
He saw two of my girls have meltdowns. I want to see how he reacts. I want to see what it's like. I want him to see me with no makeup and a ponytail. I want to be very unromantic. That was Ryan.
So, I mean, when we discuss this, though, I mean, how much are you going to be focused on that in a long distance relationship as opposed to if you see someone locally? Because those times that, I mean, I've dated people locally and stuff, and I haven't seen all that. I didn't see all that and stuff. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
Even being in day-to-day life?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
For-
You
I
don't
wasn't
see that all the time.
So how long were, I'm curious to know if I can ask, how long were you in that relationship for? In
Local.
local?
Well, there's one, I mean, I had, it was probably about 4 years
Okay.
Wow.
stuff.
That is a long time
Yeah.
to not see things.
I mean, you see a little bit of stuff, but it also depends. I mean, is this a time before you've had kids?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before you've gone through all that stuff? I mean, it really depends on where you're at in your life at that time. Because, I mean, obviously that was one time when It was a little bit in college and stuff, and a little bit outside of college, but it was 4 years, and
But I like that you mentioned that, time in your life too, like age, because there are, when we're younger, like, what is it? Not until we're 24 to 26 is that front part of our brain fully developed, that cause and effect, just understanding things in a different way. So being inexperienced, unaware, plays a big part in not recognizing what red flags are.
Yeah.
So experience is key. And I wanted to mention, I had a long distance relationship for 9 months.
And this is Emily that's talking right now.
So several states apart, a lot of emails, several emails a week back and forth, really long emails. And then that was several months, maybe 4 or 5 months. And then the next 4 or 5 months was phone calls, like daily. We would have phone calls, either short ones or long phone calls. And I thought I was really getting to know this person. And I didn't realize till after those, much longer after those 9 months, that the time that if we would have had more time in person, I would have been able to see red flags a lot sooner. I think it was maybe 3 weeks all combined together throughout those 9 months. There were about 3 weeks of days that we were actually together, and there were times when there was my spring break or different breaks that he and I had, and we would get together and do things, and I just didn't see it. It was, oh, you're busy, you're stressed. That, it's understandable, but I didn't get to see him in enough situations to really see those differences. And so to hear that, when you were with him for 4 years, you didn't see those. But I think at that time too, I was younger and I didn't have the experience, the words, the understanding, the perspective, the experiences to say, this is not a good thing.
And I think when we don't have those experiences too, it's like we don't know what our red flags are at times too.
Our own or others.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
I think also the thing that would be hard with long distance relationships is your friends or family may not get much of a chance to vet this person either. Because how many times have we been dating someone and our friends or family are like,
what are you doing?
Have you maybe noticed this about that person? And so that's really hard to do with long distance. Cause
it's hard to do local sometimes too.
Yeah, it is.
I was going to say though, but even if we do it local, how many times have we listened to those people?
Yeah.
You always hear that after the fact. It's like, my family didn't like him and my friends didn't like him. I didn't listen to him. And it's like,
yeah.
Well,
how helpful is it?
They don't always tell you either.
Yeah,
They try to be nice. Let you figure it out for yourself,
Well, hopefully, we're all at that stage. We're not in our 20s or 30s anymore. We're hopefully at that stage in life where...
Speak for yourself.
I act it like it every day.
Late 30s. You act like it every day.
But we should hopefully be at that stage in our life where we don't allow ourselves to become bowled over in a relationship, that we can look at it, take a step back and look at it a little bit more objectively, a little more logically, think through it, talk to friends, not allow ourselves to just sort of go with it because it feels good.
Yeah, let me share an experience real quick as well. I guess it could be two experiences. For example, the wonderful woman that I was dating, long distance, lived in Arkansas. We saw each other over a period of 6-7 months. I fly out there, she would fly out here. We took turns. I would go out there and think, okay, this is great. I realized she told me I need to stay out here for a little while. So if things get serious, would you be able to move out here? I said, sure. Why? Because I was so happy and I was in love and I would do anything for her. And then I got to see, hey, wait a second. Out in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas is a lot different than Colorado or Utah. It's kind of flat and open. The people are really nice. I love how the manners of the South and everything. Wow, this is rural. This is strange.
You couldn't see
could
yourself
I live
there.
out here and be happy?
Yeah.
And I had to really think about that. It ended up being, because it was going to be an area that was going to be rough for me to be in, to establish myself, find a career. We had to let things go.
Well, but that's how it is with dating, period. Especially as adults, is because, like, say for you, Annette, you have young girls, yet you're 50. So, I mean,
You are?
yeah.
I just
I'm broadcasting
no, I just
your
said
age.
it. I'm only saying it because I'm
She
tired of.
posted it online.
No.
Yeah.
I want people to know that because I'm tired of 40-year-olds asking me out. We go out. I tell
40?
them how. Stop it. We go out and then they look at and I tell them I'm 50 and then I get that look, that like deer in the headlights look. So no, I'm.
You're constantly
Advertising.
trying to figure out what will work for you and what won't. Like,
Yes.
what can I take? What can't I take? And so if somebody says, how old are your children? And they're in their 50s, and you say, hey, my youngest is
Almost 8. Yeah.
almost 8, and they're going, ooh, yeah, I can't do that. And so they're not gonna do that.
Yeah,
Just like if you're looking at Arkansas and you're looking at the small town, you're like, ooh, yeah, I don't know that I can do that. So, I mean, that's the reality of dating at our age.
Yes.
Is we have a lot of factors to
Yes.
come into
So-
play.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you're young, you're in college, you're off at, doing the typical Mormon thing. I'm not going to say Mormon. BYU, you're at BYU, you're at college, you're interacting, you're young, you're more flexible, you're more vulnerable, so you're more trusting.
You just go by your feelings
Yes.
Yeah.
and your heart. But now
Yes, but
we
now
have
we're
to
older.
make other
Yes.
pieces
Oh, we
fall
have
into play.
this, yeah, it's so complicated. That's why Steve and I wrote the book that we're still waiting to hear from Deseret Book about, on dating after divorce and surviving it. But and you throw long distance in there, and like it's just another complicating factor. And
It's doable for a lot of people, and like I said, I think I've seen people who've made it work,
yeah,
and I've seen people who haven't, and it's just
oh, it
it's
is
just
highly
another factor,
It is highly individual.
right?
My biggest piece of advice for people that are trying it is don't allow yourself to get so emotionally involved in it that you don't allow yourself to think it through.
rationally, yes.
Think it
Yeah.
through. You need to think it through to the natural consequences. So if you're both living in different states, and if both of you have minor children, where could it go? If it can't go anyplace good, it's probably better to end it now than to let yourself get sucked into it where you're to the point where you're like, I'm in love. I have to do something about this because I'm in love.
Or you come to a mutual agreement saying, hey, we're going to continue to see other people maybe later on down the road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It would be hard. But
Yes.
I just think also be very prayerful about it because I don't think the Spirit's going to come in and tell you, pick up and leave your kids. Or I don't think the Spirit's going to tell you, pick up and take your kids away from your former spouse. So I would say that's my biggest advice is don't let emotions dictate it. Now, if you don't have minor kids, and you're only
Yeah.
endangering your own self. I mean putting your own self into. I don't mean endangering.
Willing to
I
change
can
your
rewind that.
environment.
Yeah. If it's just you and you're the only person that you're going to.
Like a single person with no children, no former spouse, the job can be pretty flexible. Like they can be pretty mobile. So
Yeah, it's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, it is. But still, moving without knowing what that day-to-day life would be like, that's a very big decision to make. You need to know them well.
Although
enough.
moving
Spending.
But
is
it could also
better
be
than getting
something,
married. If you can move
Oh yeah,
and
Well,
go find out
absolutely.
before
Yes,
committing,
yes.
then I would say do that.
That, or if
Yeah.
you can afford to spend, a few weekends a month for a year, for 2 years, even 3 years, to get to know that area, that will make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people are not in for that.
I should have
commitment.
done that with the wonderful, wonderful choice daughter of God that I was married to. I moved out to Utah because my job would allow me to transfer out there. And I'm thinking, hey, no big deal. I lived in Utah before. I was born there. Oh my gosh. It ended up being a disaster. A month after I moved out there, I was in the hospital because I was having an environmental reaction to something.
Oh, wow.
I was in the hospital. I was close to death. I was everything. And I kept having illnesses. I kept getting sick. Come back to Colorado to recover, go back to Utah. Within a day or two, I'm sick again. Come back here, go back to Utah. So if I would have spent more time in Utah, what I'm getting at, if I would have spent more time in Utah, in my case,
Before
winter,
getting
summer,
married.
whatever, we would have discovered that hey, this isn't going to work. But, it was already done. We were married.
Both of you couldn't move back to Colorado?
Not at that time.
Oh.
Not at that time.
Wow.
And
Yeah, it's another thing that I didn't even
wonderful.
thought about is the whole, can you live in
Environment.
another,
yes, you've
other
got
place?
to take that. Yes.
Well, you have to think about climate too. I mean, a lot
Yeah,
of
it's
people
going-
come to Portland and then they all of a sudden are they're vitamin D deficient and depressed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, I can't take the rain, and
Yeah.
and they
Well-
move back to whatever sunny
Well, and
state
then
they
you
came
get,
from.
you get the people who say, hey, well, if you love somebody, you'll make the sacrifice no matter what. Well, you know what? You may be willing to make the sacrifice in your heart and your mind, but your body may have
Physical,
other ideas,
yeah.
or
Yeah, I couldn't live in a rainy all the time.
Well, that's something we have to
I
consider.
actually quite love it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, really? See, then it
I
works
mean,
for you.
I don't
like
need
it.
my sunglasses as much. And,
See,
That's
and
true.
it's so green
You're-
around me.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
You're an Arizona girl.
Yeah,
so you're
I
used to the
was
sun.
raised in California and
Okay,
Arizona,
okay.
both, and so
Yeah.
anything that's not sunny all the time, I'm pretty sure I would be depressed for a big part of the year.
Well, you are. Look at
Seasonal.
your
What do you
face-
call that? Seasonal.
Yeah, seasonal depression.
You look at
Yeah.
your Facebook pages, and anytime it snows,
Yeah, I mean, aren't you depressed already?
Yes, I whine every time it snows. I fully admit to that.
all right.
And so I wouldn't handle. I mean, Colorado's not bad because at least the snow melts quickly.
But you have the altitude problem. If you
I don't
too.
have an issue with altitude,
You
but other
don't, but
people may.
other
You're right.
people may,
That
though.
could be an issue for people. We have
Yeah.
a high
But
altitude.
I fully agree. You should go live where you're considering
Yes,
relocating
yes.
before you marry somebody that in that area.
And that's what I will do
So-
going forward. At
So I mean, my
yes.
friend of mine in Oregon actually, he sold his business, because he fell in love with a girl in Utah, and sold his business, moved to Utah, lived there for 2 or 3 months, and then got engaged, and then later got married, and they're
Good.
very,
Absolutely.
very happy.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
that
I
does-
think there's the method to the madness if you want to actually go down that rabbit hole. So.
Yeah, no, I think that probably is. I mean, it's hard advice for people to hear that are in a long distance relationship, but it makes the most sense
Yep.
to go and move there first before committing to that person. Saying, okay, I'm thinking that there's something here, and I really feel like there's really strong potential, but let's not just get married because we think we're in love. One person should move.
It gives you the day-to-day life experience that
Yes.
you're saying,
Yep.
that is really critical too.
There will be
Yeah,
some.
so-
There will be some. There'll be some sense of risk to this all. There's always going to be risk involved.
Absolutely.
Well, marriage is a
But you're gonna have to take
crapshoot.
that risk.
There's risk with anybody, anywhere, anytime.
But it could be less
We
of
all
a
have our
gamble
choices.
if you,
Yes.
and at least if you do your due diligence, right, and you make that
It's
move,
less likely.
and you see that person on a regular basis, and you are in that environment, that new state, that new city, whatever, on a regular basis, then you could, if the marriage fails at some point, you can look back and say, it wasn't because of the long distance aspect of it, right? And so at least you'll know that you did your due diligence on that aspect of it. There's actually a guy on Facebook, I have to bring it up real quick, from England, and I think about using his name. Ladies, you can message me if you want his name. Or email me. But there's a guy, and I discovered this when I went to Utah. Julie told me the same guy. It's one guy
Really?
who's out.
You were telling me about him too.
He's living in England, and he's been messaging ladies here in America and saying, "Why don't you bring me out, and I can live with you, and then you can help me get a job, and you can support me while I get my job, and then we'll get married." I mean, it was like within a first conversation. This is like he
That's funny.
doesn't even know. Like you should. Slowly reel this person. He's doing like all the opposite things that you should do to try and make long distance
Choosing
work.
somebody in another country is a whole different.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
wouldn't
whole
even-
different
yes.
subject.
Oh, yes.
I wouldn't even touch that one with a 10-foot.
One of the
Yeah,
groups,
that's-
one of the church singles groups that I'm in, and it's quite common to see both men and women from other countries, perhaps in South America, if I may use that,
Or Ghana.
or
You
Ghana.
got visas,
Nigeria.
all
Not
their
picking,
sorts of
I'm not
stuff.
picking on them specifically, but yeah, they'll say, hey, I love you, I want to get to know you. They're saying all the wrong things.
Bring me over.
Bring me over, yes. And you wonder, okay, are these people that we worry about? We hear about stories about that just wanting to get married for citizenship or whatever, and then
That's why the England guy was so funny, because usually you don't hear from a British person.
No, it's usually a few women wanting to
I liked the accent though. You know, that could be super enticing.
Well, that's how he reels you in, because they would go on to what's that website where you can make a little video of yourself and post it to them right away? Periscope or something like that. Anyway, and so he'll get on that, because my friend Julie, they were doing this, he sent her this little video, and he's a nice looking guy, and he's got this British accent. So well, then why did you bring me over, Julie? And it's really attractive, that British accent. So I think that's what he's using, right?
I'd like Australian, so if there's any
You're
Australian,
right.
yeah,
I like South African. The South African accent is sort of nice. Anyway, well, this has been a great discussion. Like, I feel like I came to a conclusion with it can work in certain circumstances if the person moves first. I think that's where I'm going. Oh, Monty's got a what's
you're bending now.
Well,
Yes.
that's why I like podcasts, because but in my case I will not move.
Right.
So if a guy moves and he doesn't have kids and he moves ahead of time, then we could talk. But I'd say that's why in certain circumstances.
You get lucky and you find somebody locally.
but that's the other thing is, I think there are enough people locally that I don't need to be reaching out into other states. So for someone like me, I don't see the point to it. But if people are in areas like Arkansas or the Pacific Northwest or the South, I mean, I just mentioned Arkansas as the South, but what I'm saying is there's no one to date. I can't blame those people for looking elsewhere because they don't want to spend their lives.
There's always the possibility of converting somebody, so go do some missionary work,
Look,
right?
To convert. Only 1 in 7 will convert after marriage, FYI. So anyway, but we're going to wrap it up. But I thank you all, because this has been a great discussion. And if you're listening and you want to make a comment, you feel strongly about something, please, please, please comment under this podcast. Either on AnnetteTalks.com, or you could go to my Facebook page and comment there, or email me at Annette@AnnetteTalks.com. And if you don't like listening on my website, this is also now on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and I think soon to be on YouTube and iHeartRadio. So pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts. But thank you for listening. I like to think that this is the place where LDS singles can meet.
I'm gonna bloom where I'm planted. I won't take things for granted. Come what may, bring it on. I'm gonna love it.